So it will be digital.
Yeah. The problem is that the description given in the Anacortes American is a little hard to discern exactly where things were, some of them. And for some reason, there's no mention of the Schultz family.
No.
I couldn't believe it, but. yeah.
Well, if there's Gibbons, if there's mention of the Gibbons, that is the Schultz family.
Who was that, your mom's family?
No, it's my dad's mother.
So G-I-B-B-O-N-S.
Gibbons,
Oh, Gibbons, okay.
like the monkey.
What started this off is when I tried to go through all the Anacortes Americans for 50 years ago and 100 years ago, and put little notes on the back page of the Tide. And it turns out that 1914, excuse me, was a pretty important year. And one of the things that the population was just feeling their oats, and that Guemes was going to take off. And I think that's how they managed to get a virtual full-page feature in the Anacortes American with, this is
Wow.
that photograph. There might have been other photographs too, but I didn't get them all.
Who was the writer?
Headline, Guemes Island famed for fertile soil and scenery.
And who wrote the article?
It's not,
Oh, okay.
it's, anonymous.
Say,
Oh, that's sad.
I'd say Anacortes American staff. Beautiful isle across the channel from Anacortes has a population of 300 progressive people
Oh,
Or-
progressives?
who are
Progressive, oh.
engaged in dairying, gardening, and fruit raising with good return. Now, as I go through this, I'd like you to hold comments or questions till we've gone through it, so we can get through it. But please do remember your questions, and we'll try to make some sense out of this thing. Guemes Island, one of the most fertile and productive islands in the Puget Sound groups, has situated 3/4 of a mile across the channel north of Anacortes. It's connected with the city by a county ferry, making 8 round trips daily during 5 months and 10 round trips 7 months of the year. At a 5-cent fare and 4 trips on Sunday at 25 cents round trip.
Oh, peak season was Sunday?
The island has a population of about 300 people who are engaged in dairying, gardening, fruit raising. Several of the larger ranchers raise grain and hay. A number of shingle bolt and logging camps are also in the operation. If one wishes to spend a day on the island, one could take the 6:30 boat in the morning on Guemes, float on land and land on Guemes 10 minutes later. The first place one would come to is the Island Grocery, conducted by Mrs. J.W. Goodwin, where one will find a general line of groceries, feed, and merchandise. Going east, I think that's east,
so where was the grocery?
Oh.
at the landing.
At the
Okay.
landing.
Okay,
Yeah,
South Beach.
we don't know which side of the landing, but as you know, the Mangan's grocery store was east of the landing. Blackington's was west of the landing, and I don't know, I've never heard of this.
What year was this article written?
This was written 100 years ago.
100 years ago.
1914.
The first place is the grocery. Going east from the store is the ranch owned by Jack Kidd. Now, Jack Kidd would be, right now, his house is up here, just changed hands from Parks Faro. And Mangan's was a little 5-acre piece down in this area, which
Where the store is now?
Yes, yeah, I'm in store with that. Mr. Kidd has going to the store, Jack Kidd, who was engaged in dairying, gardening, and fruit growing, and a lot more. He was very active in the community. Mr. Kidd is also a flower fancier, and there is no month of the year that he hasn't flowers blooming outdoors. 2 years ago, Mr. Kidd planted 3 small potatoes and raised 90 pounds, which he planted last year and raised 1,600 pounds. On a piece of ground 45 by 105 feet, planted in 1911, Mr. Kidd raised 3,700 pounds of onions. On the same piece in 1913, he raised 3,500 pounds. From a bed of strawberries, 30 by 70, Mr. Kidd picked 31 crates of berries. He's taken several prizes in vegetables, both at the county fair and Seattle. 1 mile east of the Kidd Ranch, somewhere up in here, probably.
What are those 1 mile section, 1 mile squares?
I don't know. Let's see. 1 inch equals 14.
And remember, the road didn't used to do that, it was right along the bank.
Oh, right. Oh, well, Sue and Patrick are a
Well,
mile
this
from
is-
the ferry, so
That's
that's where the 90 degree.
7/10 of a mile, so it might have been,
Yeah.
it might have been up here. The name of the ranch is Stanley Ranch, which is about 35 acres under cultivation. C.L. Smith rents the place and engaged in diversified farming. If anybody recognizes any of these names, please let us know at the end of this. Herman Kuchnow's Ranch joins the Stanley Place on the east, so we're still over here somewhere. He has a herd of dairy cows and ships milk to Anacortes 7 days a week. W.J. Wade's place is a quarter of a mile further east, where he has a tract of land mostly under cultivation. Next comes J.C. Matthews. Now, we know Jim Matthews is right here. And big family. One of the early settlers on the island, married to a native woman, engaged in gardening, and the principal crop of which he's always had a best quality raised. Weldon Griffith was his neighbor, which was part of the original, this is a sidebar here, Matthews property was taken over or purchased by Weldon Griffith. Occupies the Kreider place, he says, which joined the fine 100-acre ranch under cultivation. Mr. Griffith is engaged in farming, stock raising, and dairying. 1/4 mile east is the home of Frank McGill. Boy, that doesn't make any sense to me. That would be over here somewhere.
Yes,
McGill?
Is that along South Beach?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's,
Because I had him, I thought they lived down here. But we can find out, I think.
I'll talk about some, I can tell you a little after you're done.
Engaged in clearing land and raising general line of farm produce. Next comes the O'Brien Ranch, and we know where that is. That was right in here. All of this property up the mountain. And that was the first, Bryant and Matthews were the first settlers. Next comes the O'Brien Ranch, one of the oldest places on the island. It is run by Mr. Colbert, who raises vegetables and markets the fine fruit. He had several hundred apple trees, actually. Joining the O'Brien Ranch to the east is the fine home of E.S. Cook.
Cook's Cove. Cook's Cove, right.
Cook's
yeah.
Cove. And you may remember, here, let's see what he says here.
Let's see, oh, okay.
Mr. Cook has a new mineral spring where he bottles water, which is shipped to Anacortes and finds a ready market.
Oh.
Apparently it wasn't too ready because not long after that he went out of business and moved his 2 houses to Anacortes. North from the, let's see, north from the McGill Ranch is the home of John Kanaki, and that would be up here, I would think, who is engaged in a general line of ranching. Next comes what's known as the Payne Ranch, now owned by Nick Beesner, who has it rented to Albert Brand. So now we're up in this area.
Yeah,
South
Beesner
Shore.
owned that ranch when we moved here.
Yeah,
Which one, the one that,
It's the Sal Werner one, you know.
Sal Werner, yeah, where the big red barn, now red
Yeah.
barn is.
yeah.
Big red barn,
Mhm.
mostly white, but
Yeah,
becoming red.
eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Mr. Brand has a fine herd of 20 cows and ships milk to Anacortes daily. 1 mile north of the Beesner Ranch is the home of W.W. Boynton. Mr. And ring a bell? No?
Yeah, I've
Mr.
heard
Boynton
that
has a
name
fine home made beautiful by the cultivation of all kinds of flowers, which is both Mr. and Mrs. Boynton's specialty. Going on to the North Beach. How they did that, I don't know that this
Wow.
road went through. But anyway, we're going on to the North Beach. Turning to the west, we'll find the home of C.H. Sisson, which is owned by the Bellingham Syndicate. Mr. Sisson is engaged in gardening, dairying, fruit raising, there being an orchard of about 1,200 trees on the place. And he was also a county commissioner for a while. Following the North Beach Road, one will next come to the Newbert Ranch, which is one of the largest cleared places on the island. It is operated by the Newbert brothers, who do a general line of farming. Next, you'll find the home of Nate Lewis. So now we're
past,
over here
past
somewhere.
Lewis Lane, so that's Lewis Lane, and his house
Yeah.
is a couple of properties up.
Okay. He raises some of the finest fruit growing in this part of the country. Also engaged in raising and buying stock for which he finds a ready market. You will follow the county road from the Lewis Ranch to West Beach. You will find the ranch of E.B. Brand, engaged in poultry business. Traveling south, you will come to the ranch owned by Mr. Fields, who's engaged in dairying and farming. I guess, I didn't even know
Well,
there
I
was a
think
road
that
there.
Lewis Lane used to go straight across
Oh, okay.
before they connected the other
bet.
one.
The next ranch is owned by Willis Nee, raising all kinds of produce. And next you come to Jake Shriver's home, where Mr. Shriver has all kinds of fruit and raises fine berries, all kinds of vegetables. A quarter mile on the south is the John Shriver Ranch, where you will find a fine orchard. He raises poultry and is engaged in various lines of farming. On the right of the road from the West Beach east, West Beach east, through the middle of the island, you will find the home of Mrs. Locke, who raises all kinds of vegetables.
Locke, L-O-P-P.
L-O-P-P-E,
Yes.
it's spelled here.
That's my family.
Next is the home of Levi Stone, engaged in farming. Next, owned by Laura Murrow, who does a general line of farming. Follow the road east of the schoolhouse. Here, on the left is the home, and I think that's right there, Charles Forsey, one of the most productive on the island. Mr. Forsey raises all kinds of products. The Cosman Ranch comes next, and I guess that would be here.
Veal.
The Veal Farm now.
Oh, really?
And some are engaged in fruit raising. Sons are engaged in fruit raising, dairying. Mr. Coslin and Sons sent 1 cabbage to Minneapolis and received first prize. They also sent 2 heads of cabbage weighing 20 and 24 pounds each, for which they received first place at the Seattle Fair. On the right, across from the Coslin home, is the ranch. Recent. So did Coslins live north?
Cousins were the Veal house, the old Veal farm.
Okay, well.
Where Guas live now.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, where?
Where
Across,
that boat, where that boat is, right?
across the
Yes.
street.
Oh,
Where
Where
Jenny.
Jenny lived.
We refer to the Spencer's farm, and then it says from North Beach South, okay, now we're back here. And they call this the Middle Road.
Oh.
we should go back to that.
Yeah, I like that
From
middle.
North Beach South on the Middle
Sounds
Road.
kinda Hobbit-ish.
On the Middle Road is the C.D. Gould Ranch, where Mr. Gould raises fruit and other farm products, potatoes being the main crop. A half mile south is the 15-acre ranch of John Peavy, which is under cultivation. He's a veteran of the Civil War and can come up with the best in products raised by him in his home.
P-E-A-S-E?
P-E-T-E-Y, Peavy. The Peavy Ranch on south is Henry Howard Place, where Mr. Howard can show some fine vegetables. The center of the island, here we are. Across from the Howard Place is the Guemes Schoolhouse, where 39 scholars of all grades are enrolled this year with Mrs. Kellogg of Anacortes American. A quarter mile south from the schoolhouse is the home of W.D. Dolph, which is one of the best kept ranches on the island. Mr. Dolph is also a veteran of the Civil War and is one of the island's most progressive men. Adam Smith's home comes next. Mr. Smith is engaged in gardening. And next you'll find the home of Leon M. Dunn, who recently bought a tract of land from W. Woods. Mr. Dunn has erected a 6-room bungalow and is clearing his ground. He expects to raise produce to supply the needs of the family. Al Baker owns the 5-acre tract adjoining the Dunn place. Mr. Baker expects to build and move onto his place soon. Next is the new home of George Pinio, consisting of 5 acres, which is being put under cultivation this year. Mr. Pinio has set out an orchard and will raise poultry. Jack Collins' tract of land joins the Pinio place to the south and expects to build this summer. Back of Mr. Collins is the home of John Kolb, who is getting his place in readiness. South of the Collins land is a tract owned by Mrs. Richardson, who is intending to build and make her home this fall.
The only woman on the whole island.
No, we had Mrs.
Sounds like
Watt.
it. I'm sorry.
The Macaulay land joins,
Busy
Macaulay
girl.
land joins this and is being cleared and put under cultivation. L.W. Dunn owns the next tract. And lumber is on the ground to build a 6-room bungalow. The home of C.A. Dunn joins on the south and it's all cleared and set out in fruit. East from, so that, I'm thinking that Dunn was on this side. And because he later owned the store, a store. Let's see. East of the store, you'll find the home of William Woods, who's one of the early settlers on the flats. Mr. Woods owns about 100 acres of land on the road running north through the middle of the island.
Where's that, Lynn? I didn't.
That would be here.
100 acres running north from the store. Did Dunn's have a store?
Not at this time,
Oh.
not yet,
Oh,
soon.
oh.
The home of Charles Woods joins his father on the east is the Blackington Ranch, one of the oldest places on the island. C.A. Blackington farms the place for his mother, who also has her home there. Next comes the camping ground owned by the Bank of Commerce. And I think that camping ground was where the first salmon bakes were held. Maybe
Along,
here somewhere.
on South
Right right in there.
Yeah.
I think it was in front of Matty Clippinger.
Oh, write that down. Somebody write that down quick. In front of Maddie Clippinger's were the first salmon bakes.
So where was her place?
Well,
Yeah.
it's where,
Skeet Wooten?
no, it's just the other side of the ferry.
The home of Mrs. Wilfong joins the campgrounds on the north. This is one of the most attractive places on Guemes with its very fine flowers and orchard. William Payne, one of the oldest settlers, cleared a piece of ground next to the Wilfong Ranch and is having a neat little cottage built. West of the campgrounds is the web yards of the Coast Fish Company, where the web is placed in readiness for the traps and the scows, and piling are hauled up during the winter months. Men are employed here the year round. The Ladies Social Club, with the help of the men on Guemes, who donated the labor, have built a $1,200 hall where they hold grange, Sunday school and church, and all social gatherings. It is situated 1/2 mile from the ferry landing on a 1/2 acre of ground given to the club by Jack Kidd. It is all fenced and cleared, having a 5-acre picnic grounds in the rear of the building.
Oh, 5 acres.
I
How
don't know.
much there, how much is there now?
I don't know, I don't think the,
Behind the hall?
I don't think the
Is it
hall's-
5 acres?
Big
I don't
trees.
think the hall's 1/2 acre has expanded except for the parking lot to the north. So I don't know what that 5 acres was.